Thanks everyone for joining. I'm Tara Jadlani, product lead for the network enablement team here at Plaid. Very excited to be joined today by Adam Blue, the CTO of one of our digital banking partners, Q2, who has been an amazing partner to us in helping us design some of the products that we will be sharing in this session today. Today, we're introducing Bank Intelligence, a new suite of insights designed to help financial institutions fight fraud and better understand their customers. In today's session, we'll cover what it is, why we built it, as well as answer a few questions at the end. All right, let's get into our discussion. So, the way that consumers manage their money really looks completely different than it did even just 5 years ago. People often have multiple accounts, they use multiple fintech apps, and they're often moving money around. Consumer money management has fundamentally fragmented. The average person today has over four financial relationships, and that number continues to grow. The primary checking account used to really be the center of gravity, and now it's just one node among many. Through all of this change, banks are largely built to see what happens inside their own walls. Adam, Q- Q2 has a unique view as a banking platform. Can you tell us a little bit more about Q2 and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we help banks and credit unions, financial institutions really, deliver the best possible digital experience for their customers so that they can grow strong and diverse communities in the communities that they serve. And we've been doing this for about 22 years now. We're a real center point of their technology strategy and the way they go to digital, integrate with their legacy systems, and then bring partner products to digital for their customers and account holders.
And can you tell me a little bit more about how Q2 has participated in this shift to digital finance where consumers really have a large financial footprint?
Yeah, we started out, 22 years ago, helping people get through MFA and then the rise of mobile. Lately, we've worked a ton on AI, but a constant drumbeat over that time period from the very beginning and when we started the business was being open to other partners that would get financial data and deliver that to fintech experiences on behalf of our customers, account holders. And so we've been working with Plaid in particular, and then other aggregators from the very beginning, and so we've seen the shift and the rise in the importance of these multi-account portfolios that end users and account holders have that really drive the way in which they bank. And it's a lot different than it was just a few years ago.
And really, kind of as consumers are shifting, what we're hearing from our banking partners is that they have a lot of data inside their own walls, but they can't really see the larger view of a consumer. And I think this kind of shift and lack of visibility is really the problem that my team has been working to solve for banks as well as partners like yourselves.
Mhm.
So, Plaid has a large network. We have thousands of financial institutions on one side and applications on the other. And we really sit at the center of this big network. And through our position, we have visibility into financial behavior across institutions and applications at scale that no single bank or fintech could really replicate on its own. And it's this position within the financial ecosystem that our products are built on. So if you think about it, we're really able to observe patterns like how customers engage with multiple financial apps over time, how account relationships strengthen and weaken, and much more. So my team on network enablement has been working to build really two sets of models with this data. One is focused on fraud, and the other is focused on customer loyalty. Adam, when you think about this level of visibility, specifically in these two areas, what becomes possible for Q2 and the financial institutions you serve that really wasn't possible before?
So the increase in visibility that's associated with these two sets of products is really valuable. I think for a financial institution who really deeply wants to understand their account holder, if all you can understand is what they do with your financial institution, it can be pretty challenging. And this is why FI hosted aggregation in and of itself is so important. When an end user links an account with a product like Plaid IAV or aggregates an account from another FI across Plaid, there's some information that flows into the bank, but it's not a tremendous amount. I would liken it to watching a Marvel movie out of one of the big middle section, and not a great one either, like an Ant-Man. If you haven't seen all the movies that come before that and you don't watch the movies after that, you just don't really have any sense of the story. You'd just be completely lost. So, around fraud and loyalty, there's a lot of value in deeply understanding more about the end user and having a better picture of not just what they do at your financial institution, but how they relate to and what they're doing with other financial institutions simultaneously. It's always shocking to me how much an account holder will assume the financial institution must know about them when they have expectations about what kind of services they'll receive or what level of service that they can get. And so by bringing more data to the table around what's going on away from the account from a fraud perspective or what's going on away from the financial institution from a loyalty perspective, it can arm the financial institution to make better decisions and really drive a deeper experience for the individual account holder.
That's exactly what we're trying to do here. We are trying to fill in the gaps so that you feel like you understand the story and are watching the whole movie and really understand the full view of a customer's financial picture. So, I guess digging in a little bit more to fraud. Fraud Insights is our fraud solution for our banking partners to help fight fraud across the ecosystem at every touch point. I spoke about that Plaid network view, and really within the context of fraud, we have a viewpoint into attributes like unusual spikes in account linking activity, connection patterns that suggest credential testing, and account takeovers attempted at other institutions belonging to that same individual.
Mhm.
And this kind of viewpoint really gives us an early indicator into fraud before losses actually occur or before funds are moved. And these are the attributes that serve as signals into our machine learning models, allowing us to surface these risks earlier to our financial institution partners at various key points within the user lifecycle. So we have two features available within Fraud Insights. The first is network alerts. Here, because as I mentioned, account takeover really rarely stays contained to one institution. Network alerts gives banks those real-time user-confirmed signals the moment we're able to detect suspicious activity. And we're simultaneously able to notify other institutions where that customer also has accounts so that institutions across the board can really act before fraud spreads. The second feature within kind of fraud insights is connection risk score. And this is a real time risk score delivered at the moment that a customer connects a third party app to their account. So, Adam, you mentioned partnering with Plaid for years in terms of helping your users be able to share their data and kind of enable these digital experiences. And connection risk score is another data point within fraud that we would be able to serve to you within that connection flow. These signals, again, are really used to be designed at various points in the user life cycle. So during account linking, like I mentioned, as well as during ongoing account activity, and we're able to plug into your broader risk management workflows. We've been partnering with you over at Q2 for a while on this. Can you talk to us a little bit about what stood out to you about this approach when we first started talking about it?
What's so compelling about this information is that it adds new signals that we can introduce to analysis when the user is present in digital banking or when the user is away during digital banking. And I think, we've reached a point in the industry where we've probably added about as much friction as an end user can tolerate. Let me ask Tara, would you like to be prompted for multi-factor authentication more times or less times in the course of using digital banking right now?
Less times,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's what I figured. Sometimes it feels like I spend more time checking for an incoming six-digit number in my messages app on my iPhone than I do actually doing banking. And part of that is because we're so centered today around the part of the experience where the end user is attached to digital banking. And that's when we have the most information about them. And so naturally, that's when we want to try and figure out, should we let them log in? Should we let them do this? Should we let them do that? By getting signals that can flow to the platform when the end user is not present, or signals that arrive as the end user logs in that gives us some sense of risk posture, we can take a very different approach to the way in which we map those signals into affirmative actions that drive optimal fraud outcomes. So let me give you an example. If we could know, for instance, that it looked like there was account takeover activity away from the current present account, we can let someone at one financial institution know that they're under attack at another financial institution. It feels like that would be very compelling for someone to receive. I can't imagine you would be upset if, say, Bank A told you, hey, across the Plaid network, we're pretty sure somebody's trying to get into your account at Plaid B. I don't think you would go yell at Bank A about that, is my sense. And so by being able to get incremental signals and apply the not just the signals we get from Plaid, but also the machine learning that you've applied, we can take some of our newer features like user activity monitoring, which applies AI to long form journeys through the software, or we can take some of the capabilities we have, like dynamically tuning the available entitlements and rights and limits on transactions for our FI's users and apply those even when the user is not present in digital. I think we've probably gone pretty close to as far as we can around interdiction and security posture interior to digital banking. We need to get more information from across the financial spider web that every person represents so that we can be taking actions to protect them when they're not attached to the keyboard or attached directly to their financial institution. So whether it's the risk scoring around individual connections or identification of user not present account takeover, these are both really valuable signals that can fit into fraud products that are just coming online for us at Q2 and create additive value in the partnership between Plaid and Q2 that creates extraordinary experiences for account holders on behalf of FIs. And I think that's really what they want. They want to be delighted because they want you to tell them about a problem before they're even aware that the possibility of that problem had occurred. And I think that's what we could see maybe features like this. It's like really leaning into user delight around fraud, which, I mean, that's kind of like peanut butter flavored cat litter. It's almost a total oxymoron, but when you can help someone avoid an actual fraud, when you can make it low friction, and when you can give them a relationship that builds trust and avoids the kind of financial losses that come along with this activity, I think it can help you build a customer for life.
I think that's exactly right and exactly what we're trying to do here. I think you asked me about whether I would want more or less friction, and I think the answer is definitely less friction as long as it's actually a safe experience. And I think this is what you over at Q2 are actually seeking to help all of your underlying financial institutions build.
Mhm, absolutely.
Um, okay, well, switching gears a little bit to loyalty, the second piece of the bank intelligence suite. Really, here at a high level, we are trying to assess the strength and the risk of customer relationships. The first feature, Primacy Score, helps banks understand how central they are to a customer's financial life. The second, Retention Score, identifies patterns that suggest a customer may be likely to churn. Each model here is useful for a financial institution on its own. Primacy helps a financial institution understand relationship strength today and whether they're that a given customer's primary account. And retention really helps identify where the relationship is headed in the future. Used together, though, these scores are designed to show your teams where they can most effectively spend their energy. Adam, I'd love to hear how you think the banks that you serve might be able to leverage these signals.
I think, you know, banks talk about loyalty all the time and they talk about customer satisfaction and they run their NPS surveys and they do all these different things. Um, but there's nothing that actually tells the story more effectively about end user account holder satisfaction than measuring where they go and what they do and where they hold their money. And so I think, if you're a bank, you know that your customer has multiple financial relationships. They're using fintechs. They've probably got other deposit accounts. They may have loans in other places. You get some of the information about this in different ways in digital. But, the same way everybody's absolutely convinced that they're the cutest guy in the boy band, I think a lot of financial institutions believe that the activity that they see on their platform is the proof that they are the primary financial institution. But not everybody can be, Justin Timberlake. So if you have a better view, an objective view of whether or not your account holders are likely using you as their primary financial institution, and you have some indicator, a leading indicator that an end user may be preparing to attrit, you can really change the way in which you engage with them. And so if you, for instance, moved your direct deposit from one financial institution to another, would you then be excited or not excited if that financial institution sent you an offer for, I don't know, a high rate certificate of deposit? Probably not very excited, right? It doesn't make any sense. I would expect as a customer, if I move my direct deposit, I should probably get somebody from the bank that says, "Hey, we noticed you moved your direct deposit. What does this mean? Is there something we're not doing for you? Is there something we're not being effective at?" And even if the customer says, "You know what? I'm not going to move it back, but I just got to tell you, it's just too hard to get plat aggregation to work at your financial solution." Not the case on Q2. I'm making up something about somebody else's customer, but the point being there's a signal in there that's got value, and reaching out to that customer can help you preserve the relationship. The earlier you can identify that you have a drift or a change or a decline in the level of loyalty from a customer, and the more effectively that you can segment those customers, just as you've done on this slide, the more you can tailor the messages that you deliver. Right? Nobody wants an offer for a loan when they're not trying to buy something big. Nobody wants an offer to get out of debt when they don't have any debt. A lot of messages that financial institutions send out to customers are not terribly relevant because they are not using available data that they've got to be effective. So if you can identify who you're likely the primary FI for and who is likely to attrit, you can really bend the messaging in that direction, and you can have a more complete objective understanding of where you sit for that financial institution customer and either reward the fact that they've chosen you and they're loyal, or you can try and drive them by figuring out what is it that's important to them, how can you engage with them and drive them in a direction where you're a more primary financial institution for them. These two elements from Plaid are a key part of the tool set that would make that possible. And to some extent, it all maps down to each of the banks that we serve at Q2 has a different community that they interact with. They have a different set of verticals that they target. They have a different way they go to market. But this underlying data can be applied to the way in which they bank their customers and think about really delivering their message and their brand promise and tailor that in a way that's very specific to where the customer is in the relationship. And it may not always be entirely successful, but I will promise you it is more successful than sending irrelevant offers that are out of context to a customer that's on their way out. And so I think there's a lot of value in this that I'm really excited to bring to Q2 customers and help them figure out what is the strategy for driving customers into the right place in this model, which is you are their primary financial institution, they are happy with you, and you can deepen their relationship, drive more products, and create more value for them in the long term.
That's such a powerful point, Adam. I think what I'm hearing you say is that this isn't just about having more data or better data from the financial institution itself, but actually having the right data, which is really a broader view into a customer. And I think that shift from really reactive to proactive relationship management is exactly what we're set out to enable with this suite.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a great way to think of it.
Well, thank you so much for kind of sharing how these products are valuable for Q2 and the customers that you serve. I also really want to thank you for joining us today. You've had such valuable takes and you've been such a great partner to us in developing the suite of tools across fraud and loyalty. We will now shift gears a little bit and head into the Q&A portion of our session and hear more from you, our audience. All right, I'm seeing some questions come through in the chat. We have time for two of them, so let's just get into it. All right, I'm seeing one about fraud, and the question is, how is the connection risk score different from a protect score? All right, I will take that one. So some of you have probably heard about Protect, which is one of our fraud products at Plaid as well. Connection Risk Score actually leverages that same trust index model that powers Protect. The key difference here is that Connection Risk Score is actually built for financial institutions to use at the specific point in the user life cycle where a customer is connecting to a third party app, whereas Protect is typically used for customer onboarding. And I think we have time for one more question, so I will look for one on loyalty. Uh, okay, here's one. How does Plaid define direct deposit churn? So For the retention score, we are helping banks understand the propensity that a given user will churn in the next 3 months. Typically, when we look at churn, we view that as a customer that has had direct deposits for 3 consecutive months, followed by 90 days or more with no direct deposits. Definitions can vary slightly, but this mirrors how most of our partners view churn. But we're happy to work with you if you have a different definition of churn for your specific use case. All right. I think that's all we have time for today. We are working with partners to further develop these products. If you're interested in joining the beta or learning more, we'd really love to connect. The waitlist is live on the Bank Intelligence webpage, so feel free to contact us there. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.